Good evening, and good evening, residents of Litchfield, and welcome to the February 17, 2021 School Board meeting. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do you have any revisions to the agenda this evening?
There are none.
Summary of non-public actions from February 3rd, 2021. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of January 20th, 2021. Mr. Burke second. Motion carried by roll call vote. Mr. Burke, yes. Mrs. Harrison, yes. Mrs. McDonald, yes. Mr. Myers, yes. Mrs. Hirschberger, yes. So this evening we have someone who's going to be presenting a CHS prom proposal. I believe that is Ms. Kerrigan.
That's right. And so actually, so Principal Lonergan is here tonight, and Ms. Barnett, who is the advisor, and then student is Catherine Kerrigan. So you guys are on and live.
All right. I believe Ms. Barnett is presenting the PowerPoint just because her computer is a little faster. Okay, so first up, I just wanted to say thank you for having us here. It definitely means a lot that you're taking the time out of your night. So here's just our prom proposal for this year and why we feel that we need it and why we deserve it. So 2020 has clearly brought so many challenges to us and students, including remote learning and school shutting down and us being sent home. Schools ending abruptly, which made us eat, sleep, and breathe sports, and so that was definitely a tough loss. Junior year prom of 2020 was also canceled, and so we definitely want to give those seniors at least 1 year to have their prom and that high school experience. The schools opening back up with the option for in-person or remote learning. It's been definitely mentally draining on students, and it's been just very stressful and a hard time to navigate through. We're definitely looking for a lot of normalcy in this not so normal year, and just an opportunity for us to experience those high school events that everyone has always talked about and said great things about. Sports have also been able to successfully run with some adjustments, so we believe that we could use those experiences that the winter sports and other sports have brought and include those into our prom this spring, because we think that having this event outdoors, like I'll be talking about in a little bit, will definitely help with that, and it'll be good to bring in those implemented policies. And here's just a little time and location. So our goal is to have it on Friday, May 14th with a rain date of Saturday the 15th. And the time is to be determined. We're thinking around 6 or 7. And it would be located at Campbell High School, which is like an under the stars or outside of the tent. Some location options are at the practice field where the football team practices, at a parking lot if grass is an issue, or at the basketball court in the back of the building. We've been in contact with Dave Ross, who is the head of building and grounds, and we're working on location between the tent rental companies. So that's definitely still in the works a little bit. And just for some COVID precautions, obviously this is very important. We want to talk about this since this would be a lot of the issue. So we would do temperature checks at the door for everybody coming in, whether it's people or staff members or people who are helping. We would have some forms to be completed by anybody who's attending the prom. We would require masks and have additional ones available at prom in case some breaks or people are uncomfortable with their masks, because we want everyone to be wearing them at all times. We would have hand sanitizing stations throughout the tent or just everywhere, especially where people are eating or walking in and out, just so everybody has that option. We would also like to consider the option for students of other schools attending if possible. I know for winter sports, we do have like other schools coming in with all of these COVID precautions. So personally, I think it would work if we had that same opportunity for our outdoor prom. And some other schools in the area are also planning proms, like Milford and Wyndham, and they also have many of these same adjustments that we're looking into, and we are getting into contact with those. Here's just a slide for catering. We have some appetizer options to reduce the need for a full sit-down meal, because that would definitely be hard to separate and distance everyone from. We would like to pre-package as much food as possible, especially desserts that are individually wrapped, and just as much that we can. We would have servers assisting with maintaining the COVID protocols, and I know a lot of sophomores have been offering to help with doing that and helping serve there. We would also try to use paper products like pre-wrapped utensils and paper plates. And I know it's not ideal, but obviously we want to just do it the best and most safe way that we can. And for options for catering, we've been working with the Litchfield Food Services. They support our local community, and there's a professional, Lauren Crowley, who is familiar with the protocols, and she's been working with us a lot to help get that prepared and just to have that as an option. And just for the last slide, just some logistics. So we would definitely need a dance floor. It would be needed, especially if we use the practice field, because we wouldn't want to tear up that grass. We would need tables and chairs, probably a decent amount because of the distancing that we would need. And heaters would possibly be needed just because May is such an iffy time of year. We would request for the Litchfield police officer for safety. This probably won't be a huge issue if we give them good notice, but we would obviously want an officer there for some safety reasons. And also, we brought up an idea of a prom march this year. It's where students can walk in the parking lot with themselves and their date or friends, and the parents and community members can take pictures of them. And I think that would be a good idea for distancing and just being able to get those picture opportunities that everyone loves while still being safe without it. And lastly, with some additional community involvement, we would love to accept donations, and we will work hard to get some sponsors and fundraisers that are being run. And we're definitely working on getting some more money to run this prom. And so many parents have already been offering if they want to help with organizing and just everything like that. So the town and community has been very open to helping them. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Lonigan, do you have anything to add or concerns, questions?
So I've been in communication with a number of local principals who are similarly interested in having proms. You know, some are having just a senior prom. Some are having them, all of them are talking about having them outdoors. They are talking about, in one case in Manchester, having the prom approved by the health department in the city of Manchester. So there are ways that we could manage this. I have a little differing view on visitors coming in for a prom from other schools, but that's something I'd look at what other principals and other schools are doing. But we also have there are other schools besides Wyndham and Hollis Brookline, I think is what you said. So there's a community of principals that are looking at the possibilities of doing this in their schools and trying to do it safely. The one thing, you know, it's the sort of the question you have to ask is, how do you dance, you know, and sort of close to people when you're having a prom? And that's where the mask on and those pieces are really, really important. So we'd have to have teachers and administrators supervising just to make sure that the kids are keeping things appropriate.
Mrs. Barnett and Catherine, do you need approval tonight so you can go ahead and rent a giant tent before all the other schools get them? Can you hear me, Mrs. Barnett?
Yeah, I heard you. So I have worked with a couple of tent companies to try to get quotes. And of course, the sooner we have an answer, the easier it is to be able to reserve them so they don't get booked up by other people. I know that I've been told by a number of them, like with colleges and other schools trying to do them under the tent, they are booking up quickly. So the sooner we can have an answer, obviously, the better that would be.
So out of curiosity, how large of a tent are you looking at?
There are different sizes. So I've gotten quotes. I have about 8 different quotes for 8 different size tents, different types of tents. One that the tent poles are buried in the ground. One where tent poles are weighted down and covered up so that they're not actually buried into the ground. The tent companies actually come, they set up, they take care of all setting up and putting them up and then taking them back down and then repairing anything. So if they've had to bury the poles of the tent, they do fix that. I do actually have a meeting with one of the tent companies tomorrow just to kind of survey the location to see, you know, where it would fit best and how it would be, maybe not be so intrusive of like taking up parking lots and stuff like that.
But again, I'll ask the question, what size tent are you looking at?
Oh, so there were some that were ranging from like a 30 by 50 to 46 by 90, I believe was the largest one. But they have different sizes, so it depends on what you're putting under it. So some would seat 250 underneath, but that's pre-COVID versus if you're not having like full sit-down meal, you could actually fit more people under there in distance.
How many people are you estimating? Is it 2 classrooms, juniors and seniors?
Seniors.
So
In the past,
400
the
people?
junior,
How many people?
in the past, the junior classes usually had about 250 in attendance for the junior prom.
So how many tents are you looking at?
We would hopefully try to do 1. If we needed to do 2, we probably need to look into raising some additional money. That was one thing I did speak with a caterer who had suggested maybe having 1 tent set up for just tables and 1 tent set up just for dancing.
The reason I ask, I mean, the size tent you mentioned is smaller than the gym. Much smaller than the gym. So I'm just thinking as far as capacity and how many people are going to try to crowd underneath 1 tent?
I think being
The
outdoors.
largest tent that they have says that it can hold up to 500 people. So I figured where it was 250, that would allow for distancing.
I would think having it outdoors is the you have
absolutely.
the open air. I think you can.
It is, but at the same time, if you have a tent half the size of the gym, then you just put everybody together.
But they need a tent. Wouldn't you have a smaller tent for like pictures and stuff? I'd like to see it as normal as possible. Like, do you really have to use paper plates? Maybe I'm like Cinderella.
Nice paper plates.
Yeah.
What?
Try that.
Nice paper plates.
No,
Not-
oh, nice plastic paper plates. Oh, okay.
So
If I can talk for a second,
No.
when I was the paint, their prom is held every year on campus at the school. Now, granted, a huge gym, 3-4 times the size of our gym, but one of the interesting things about doing it there is we would have the photographs. If there were student photographs being taken in pairs, we would actually do that in a separate classroom in the gym. You could do that if you regulated the number of kids going in there to have pictures taken and use a small area, say in the gym where students are walking back and forth under supervision of staff. So you can manage to have those set up in a little different area. And the same with, we have valets parking cars, but that's, it's a huge school with 900 kids going to a prom. But there are some creative ways to make this even intimate outside for the kids,
So where's the location you're considering putting the tent?
So there's the basketball court out behind the school, which would allow for easier access to the school for facilities like lavatories and stuff like that. There's also, we've talked about using the practice field for a section of the parking lot. So that's why I wanted someone in to kind of give me an idea of exactly how much space would need to be blocked off for the size of the tent that we would need. And that way there, we would have a better idea to determine where it would best fit and best be accessible for everybody.
Can I make a motion to allow Mrs. Barnett and the
Done
student
here.
council? What?
Still have questions?
Oh, you still have questions? Come on, let them do it.
I don't have a problem with them doing it. And as far as I'm concerned, that's up to the school administrator if they
Yeah.
want to do it. I think it's no different than sports as far as play at your own risk.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be mostly all the same cohorts that you're going to school with right now. They're going to be at the prom. And I think getting back to some normalcy is wonderful. I just caution you that I would inquire as far as the tent company. One of my thoughts is find out what their refund policy is if for some reason we need to cancel the prom. You don't want to be stuck. You don't want to be stuck with that expenditure. And most places now understand that due to COVID and different restrictions, that they are very lenient as far as a refund policy. And there's so many different companies out there. And if someone that can't guarantee it, say, I'll go to someone else.
Yep.
As far as social distancing, someone mentioned like, how do you do that dancing? Well, the couples aren't going to. I mean, they're couples, so they're going to be close and they'll wear a mask. This is not 1950s where we're going to be doing a jitterbug and you're pulling each other from like 6 feet away. I'm dating myself here.
That's your
Little
school
bit.
years,
Well,
not
that's-
mine.
Brian, you have not been to a school dance in a long time.
Yeah, that's true. I'm thinking about It's a Wonderful Life. And that's where I'm, but I just think it's great. And I'm hoping that there's nothing that's going to prevent it from happening. And I think everything we know about COVID and everything we've done as far as precautions, it will establish it that we can have a safe prom.
I guess my only question to Mike would be, should they push it back further just to lessen the chances of freezing cold or rain?
What do you mean? Can you speak louder, Rob?
I'm just wondering if they should consider moving it back further. Just
Later
this
in
isn't
May
a school
or-
board thing. Just
yeah.
as it just seems if it's going to rain for a weekend, the Friday and the next Saturday, it could rain in 2 days. You lessen your chance the further back in May you go.
There are a lot of events in May and June.
Yeah.
Like that's a tight squeeze.
Yeah.
I just think about graduation. Graduation's normally around that time, and it's normally hot.
College graduation.
You also run the risk, you get into postseason sports and athletics, and there's all sorts of things that are unknowns. To be honest, I locked into the third Saturday in May as the prom. That was the perfect date for a prom. And if you sort of announce it in advance, you can plan athletic events around it, and you're
Buy
not
my
into any tournaments yet. So that ends up working out really well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Mike. Yeah, there are so many different activities going on at that time that you're basically wiggling it in to some to the schedule somewhere,
Yeah.
And I know, Kim, we've talked about that. We've talked about that with Perez as well, in terms of the sort of the time frame to bid in. And Mike, I agree with you. Somewhere around the second, third week in May.
So
Usually we're well.
just one other COVID question, and again, down the road in May, it may be, no reason to ask, but whether or not students from other states would be allowed to attend.
Other towns and
If
states.
someone happens to be dating a college student coming home from Florida, or someone who lives in Massachusetts.
Yeah, we that's why I struggle with this, Brian, because we only let former alums come in who are post grads, and even then they have to be under the age of 21.
Yeah.
So then having a student who say goes to NYU or something like that, as a person who's really concerned about the safety piece, I'm really struggling with that piece.
Yeah.
If
Most
if the-
colleges are going to be out, sooner than that. So
And if the travel quarantine is still in place, that will help because that would take care of, somebody would have to be back 10 days prior, but we would have to
Right.
follow that expectation.
So again, I'm just going to say, I think it's great that they're going forward with this, and I'm just hoping we can pull it off.
I have faith.
Yeah, Liz,
do
you wanna-
this.
You want to make
We
your
did the
motion?
graduation last year. We can do this.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and I've spoken with a couple of different caterers who have told me that they did weddings outside all summer long. And they had mentioned that because New Hampshire had some more flexibility with their COVID protocols here, that a lot of out-of-state weddings moved here to New Hampshire. And she said for her company, they did not have any issues, knock on wood, for any COVID outbreaks or anything after. And she said the whole summer went with weddings outside. So she said definitely her experience with doing them outside was a lot better. And it is in line with the CDC holding events outside to reduce the risk of spread.
And who says you need a tent anyway, if it's nice?
Need a tent.
Lights. It's your backup.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Tara just
Helps
mentioned,
up the
we
mood.
had the graduation, no problem. Maybe we do the exact same
No,
thing for the
no,
prom.
no,
We
stop
just paint
him.
squares.
No, shut him up.
They have their
No,
own
we
individual
want pretty
dance.
lights. We want colored lights. I don't even have
I
a
vote
daughter.
Brian
and
is
I'm
not
into
in
this.
charge of planning the prom.
I'm not-
I didn't get one last year.
No bugs in May either.
No, just
None.
little black things.
None.
I think
Those
good
are
luck.
words.
I think it's going to take some outside the box thinking and some creative solutions. And, as long as we are adhering to strict protocols and everybody's following the rules and everybody can have a good time and feel safe.
You have a motion, Liz?
I have a motion that we allow the student council and Mrs. Barnett to proceed forward with their prom planning. How's that?
Fantastic. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. So Liz made a motion, Tara second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. 500. Carry on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That'll bring us to community forum. If anyone has joined.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to take myself off the screen and switch over to,
Can what?
That means the Google Meet. I requested, it says someone has to.
I can't. Mike can, I believe.
Do you want to talk, Patrick?
There you are.
You can sit right there, can you? Oh.
so this is our public Google Meet. And Patrick across the room is the only guest.
Okay. Did you want to speak, Patrick, or no? Okay. So if Patrick is the only one, then we'll close community forum. That'll bring us to correspondence.
School board received some correspondence from Mr. Patrick Keefe on behalf of the LEA, requesting clarification about the amount and spending of the COVID relief funds that we have received so far and how much we anticipate receiving in the future from state and federal CARES Act and the second wave of funding. He requested allocation towards building student, teacher, and community wellness and more to build a more positive climate and to ensure that our students, teachers, and communities' needs are being met through the pandemic. Also was a request to move our meetings to the CHS gym to allow more public attendance and greater transparency and community input. And that was the only correspondence to the board.
Thank you. So with that, it'll bring us to superintendent comments.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Let me just give an update. Last month, we reported on the kindergarten and grade 1 registrations. And I wanted to get a historical perspective because the board asked me, so how does that compare? So I've also updated the numbers to today. So basically, at this time last year, we had 56 kindergarten registrations. We currently have 59. So that's 3 more kindergarten registrations than what we had last year. And grade 1 registrations, last year we had 77. We currently have 69. So that's actually a loss of 8 grade 1 registrations to date. So kindergarten numbers up a little bit and the first grade registration is down a little bit. And when we bring those registrations forward, we'll make sure that we give you the historical perspective in the future so that you get both.
Yeah, thank you.
Second thing I wanted to follow up with the board on are the remote parent meetings. So if you remember, we had a round of remote parent meetings that the principals hosted, and I attended one of those and Mary attended 2 of them the last time. And they resulted in a lot of feedback for us to make some positive improvements in the way we are interacting with our remote students. So the principals then set up for a second round of those sessions to invite all the remote parents in and to see how things went. And basically for the agenda, they began by recapping the changes that have been made after the first round. So here are all the things that we've done at each of the 3 schools in order to improve the experience for the remote students.
Are you going to share those things?
We can, absolutely. Yeah. And then the principals went on to say, how are we doing? Are there other things that we need to get after? And I will tell you that the first meeting was at Griffin, and that lasted about 15 minutes. I was in that session, and they were looking at me. I wasn't. Was it Tom's?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was Tom's.
because I did Griffin.
Anyway, that's right. So we swapped. This time I went to 2 and Mary went to 1. And at any rate, the session lasted about 15 minutes. Parents were very positive. They appreciated all the changes. There were a few suggestions for things that we needed to do. And then we followed up on those as quickly as we could. And a similar thing at the high school. The meeting lasted a little bit longer, but it also ranged outside of, it was more like a parent principal coffee chat, because it went all over the map. It really wasn't as much as around remote. It was sort of an overarching conversation about school. And then Mary was in the Griffin one.
Yeah, GMS. It was about a half hour. Dan did a really good job of summarizing the changes and some of the things that they've done to address the initial, the things that came up in the first round. And then there was just some real positive feedback from the parents and a couple things to tweak, but nothing. They
Will
had
you
done a really
have
good
something
job.
like this for the parents who aren't remote, like an open forum that they can air their
We
concerns?
we certainly could.
It's right here, the school board.
Yeah, that's true.
And they have coffee with the admins. I mean, the CHS has coffee with the admins. What's it, once a month?
Are the remote parents allowed to go to those? I would hope so.
Yeah, it's open to all parents, I assume.
So I guess the good news is that the feedback that they got from the first session seems to have been well received with the implemented changes that we put in, right? So it really did seem like we had shown a lot of growth. I echo what I said to the board last time, which is why we didn't do these earlier in the fall. I don't know, other than everybody's going 100 miles an hour and it wasn't brought up, it wasn't on the radar. So,
And the
had we done
teachers are
it,
fine with everything you asked them to do, or the things they might have overlooked, not on purpose, of course.
exactly.
Right, yeah.
So I think we've landed in a better spot. And, if we do a next round, it'll probably be closer to maybe the end of the quarter. I don't know that we have to do it quite as quickly based on the feedback. And I think we now have a rapport where if
Reach
somebody
out.
had a concern, they know who to go to and to get that concern heard. So any questions on the remote parent meetings? All right, next up, we have the voter guide. So Michelle has put the voter guide together in consultation with the town, and I've reviewed it and given some feedback and so forth. So this is an opportunity for the board to give us feedback before we go ahead and get that ready to be sent out. The goal is to get it finalized tomorrow off to the printer, and then we'll be getting it delivered to the mail sorting location so that we can get those ready to be delivered. We're aiming to have those in mailboxes by, let's see, did we put it on here, Michelle?
Yeah, it should be on the last page.
Yeah, if you look at the last page, which ends up being the outer envelope, it says to be delivered by March 5th. So that's the Friday before the vote. So then it would be in people's hands leading into the vote. So
And we'll also put it on the website. I know the town is putting it on their website. The town finalized it today. I had everybody I could think of look at the school, the district one. Everything looks good. I got it down to 8 pages. And do you want me to let them know the cost?
yeah, go ahead. Give us a
So the
summary.
cost of printing for 3,300 copies is $1,050, and the mailing is about $612, which we will be splitting 50-50 with the town.
So do you have the order of how they're going to appear on the ballot, the names? You have that yet?
Kind of. If you look at it, what we do is we put them alphabetically, and then depending on the seed number,
Yep.
the last person most likely will go first. So in this case, it would be Mr. York, then Miss Ames, and so on, alphabetically. And I think I put it on the voter guide reading across
Yep.
in 2 columns.
Okay, in the town, the way that's set up, that's how,
Yes.
Right.
And, I should mention that the ballot this year is going to be slightly different. It will be, you will notice on it, it will say absentee and official ballot. Because we just don't know how many people are going to request. And we want to make sure we reach everybody and we can get everybody out to vote. There will be sample ballots, which will be posted as soon as we receive them.
I just have a quick comment on the technology. Are you looking for edits or?
Well, I think we're all set, but I'll take, if there's anything that
Okay.
is wrong, we'll correct it before it gets printed.
Okay. My only, can I just make a comment on one of the
Yes.
sentences? So in the article explanation under the Article 2, It's the third sentence that says the way instruction is delivered has been changed by the pandemic, which is true. But I think the pandemic has highlighted where the need is, but the need has been there since before the pandemic. You know, we're not asking for these positions and in response to the pandemic. We're asking for them because we need to move our district forward in technology integration.
So I can add.
So I'm just afraid that, you know, saying that it was changed by the pandemic gives them the message that
You
this
can almost
is-
say that the pandemic really was what opened our eyes to it. I mean,
Exactly. But the gap has been there since we started our one-to-one program and
we went from a
started.
gap to it.
You know, as you say that, we might want to just avoid even referencing the pandemic
Yeah.
because it also feels like, oh, you need it just to get out of the pandemic.
Right,
Versus,
but that's,
That makes
I mean, this
sense.
is a long-term improvement in our district.
Michelle, if we strike that whole sentence.
Yeah.
And the next one, more technology is being used for which training is limited. Strike the next two sentences.
Okay.
Because it then reads, it flows right into a tech
Right.
integrator
Yeah.
supports teachers. It just gets into what it is.
Okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Thank
two
you.
deletions.
Instead of putting stuff in, take stuff out.
There you go. Make it shorter.
And I'll get
It's a
that
good catch.
right to the printer tonight.
Thank you.
Ooh.
I appreciate that.
All right. Anything else on the voter guide?
But then my question is, and for Article 3, why wouldn't we have the exact same verbiage for both?
It's additional information under 3.
Yeah, I tried to split it between both articles to make it, you know, it was kind of hard to, I didn't want to put both articles together and then put the explanation because people would be saying, where's the explanation for Article 2?
Yeah, but having different, I think I see where you're coming from, Brian. Having a completely different explanation, even though it's the same, you know, they're identical articles, might go, okay, so how is this one different from the first one? You know,
It's sort of addressed in that first, we've identified the need for 2 and 2 and 3 taken together.
Yeah.
I wonder, Michelle, instead of having that be one big paragraph, so when you delete those two paragraphs or those two sentences,
Separate it out.
separate out that paragraph
sure.
because it's sort of like you're explaining Articles 2 and 3 with that first sentence, and then
Okay.
the one thought I had when I look at the explanation for 3 is it could give somebody may feel like going back and looking at 2 again. You know, if they make a
Right.
judgment on 2 based on that, and then they get more info
yeah.
here.
No, I think it's good information to include. I just wonder whether,
So are you suggesting to run that as part of the explanation?
yeah. So if we have like a separate article that explains why we're asking for 2 and 2 separate warrant articles and both of them funded would meet our needs, then maybe we move the rest of that paragraph to the Article 3 explanation.
We just put it all together under Article 2 and then under Article 3 say same as above.
It's the explanation above.
Yeah.
This is the second of 2 requested positions,
Yeah.
C.
This way you get them all the information at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Michelle?
I'm fixing it as we're speaking.
Nice.
Anyone have anything else? We're all set.
Looks good.
All right, next up is the school calendar. So presenting the board with a draft calendar for next year, and I just want to kind of walk through a couple of details. So basically, the start of school would follow the format that we followed this year. We'd have 2 teachers, 2 days for new staff to be oriented to the Litchfield School District, followed by 3 PD days that we have at the start of the year for our teachers. That would allow us to begin on Monday, August 30th with students. So we could get 4 student days in before Labor Day. We would then have a 4-day weekend for Labor Day, which has kind of become a traditional way to recognize that last hurrah of summer. And then in October, we would also have a 4-day weekend with Columbus Day and a teacher workshop day preceding Columbus Day. So that would be a 4-day weekend for families. In November, this is a little bit of a different wrinkle, and it's only because Veterans Day occurs on a Thursday, and we celebrate Veterans Day on Veterans Day. So what we're proposing is that we have parent-teacher conferences the evening of November 10th. So they would occur that evening. We would all have the holiday on Thursday, and then Friday would be the parent-teacher conference day session. So there'd be a little bit of a gap between, parents on the nighttime and then parents on the day. But in talking with the LEA in the lab and collaborating around the development of this, that was a suggestion they had that they thought would work out really well. Thanksgiving is the 3 days. You can see the holiday recess is really a 1-week recess this year, with the 24th added in as one extra bonus day in the week before. January, we have MLK Day and the end of the first semester or second quarter. February, the vacation week is late this year. It's got to do with the third Monday being President's Day, which is much later. So the 21st is the traditional week for Massachusetts students to be on vacation, and New Hampshire follows the week after that. I will tell you that just last night, or Monday night, the Hudson School Board approved that week. So now we're aligned for our CTE students, and that was a piece that we were waiting to happen. So that will be the date of February vacation, although it's really a February, mostly March vacation. That created another problem for us because it didn't make sense to have the election day, March 8th, off, because there would only be 1 day in between. So we decided to match Hudson's schedule because they have a teacher workshop day on the 25th. So our students who attend CTE wouldn't have anywhere to go on that day, staff who have children in the 2 districts. So this, this just allows us to align that and to get our last teacher professional development day in. We traditionally have one in March anyway, but now it will be on the 25th.
So school will be in session on election day.
School will be in session on election day. This year on election, of course, it's town election only. So we will, just make sure we lock everything down and follow the safety protocols that we've had in the past. For April, it's the traditional April vacation week. May is just Memorial Day Monday. And that brings us to the 15th, which is the 180th day. So, that's where we're scheduled to end on a Wednesday. And then, of course, if we were to have 4 snow days, it does bump out to the 21st. We haven't had a conversation yet about snow days next year. So that's something that we'll have to have down the road. So that is your proposed calendar for the 21-22 school year. And it does involve, there's an MOA attached because we did work with LEA around a couple of contract pieces that we needed to make sure that we had an understanding on. So you have an attached MOA signed by President Keefe of the LEA.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Don, I'll make a motion to accept the calendar as written for the 2021-22 school year.
I'll second.
There's no further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. 500. We have a calendar.
All right, thank you for that. We will put final touches on it and get it posted ASAP so our families have it and can start to make their planning for the future on that.
I'd just like to say thank you to the LEA for moving that forward. I know last year we were, we were kind of struggling with the calendar a little bit. So I just appreciate the turnaround on that and working with us.
Excellent point. Thank you. Next up, the enrollment projections and GMS facility study summary. So those documents were shared with the facility committee, and we shared them kind of in two parts. And then I provided Keith Burke, who did the writing of that, with some feedback, and we made a few enhancements to it. And I think one of the better enhancements to the document was, if you read the facility part, it keeps talking about corridor number 71 at GMS, or ramp A at GMS, or stair 4 at GMS. And I'm like, can we attach a map that has these things labeled on it? Because I'm reading it and I'm like trying to guess. I couldn't even figure out where the two ramps were until I forgot about the really steep one inside the old 1930s building. So that's the second ramp.
That's helpful to me too. I can't even remember class, like room numbers. You know, it's Mrs. Parent's room, or, you know, Mrs. Leary's
Brian
room.
and I bought those nameplates back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
PTO.
So that's been added back in there now. So you have the full study. It's all stitched together. It's one comprehensive report. And it has been made available on the website. So it's now available for the public. And just wanted the board to be aware of that and see if there were any last questions about it. But I think you've seen it already.
Mhm.
All right, perfect. And that is my last comment.
Excellent. All right. That'll bring us to school board comments.
I was fortunate enough to get an invite to a PAC hockey game. It's one of the only sports I've never watched through Litchfield School, the school district, and I took a ride up to Concord on Saturday night, and it was a blast. I really enjoy watching hockey anyway. They were robbed. They Bo got a goal when the net was off the little hook things, but I really enjoy going and seeing the kids play a sport I never got to see that we sponsor through Litchfield.
Anyone else have anything? So I just had a question actually that goes back to the calendar.
Yep.
Since Mr. Larnigan's on here, because one of the things that, again,
He's not there.
he's not there.
It said he left the meeting, but his picture didn't leave the meeting. So
Well, I guess it
His
doesn't matter if he's
spirit is
not there,
still
but
with us.
again, we don't know what's going to happen as far as snow days, but let's say that we can deal with snow days the same way we did this year. Do we have a date as far as for graduation? Where that would fall?
well, so that, again, that's a future negotiation with the LEA because of the blizzard bag language that's in the existing CBA. So as part of the MOA this year, we signed off on up to 5 days can be done remotely.
Yeah.
But we don't have that for next year. So if that's something that we can successfully negotiate, then we can set a definite date. I will tell you that, go back to it for a second. You'll notice that the 8th is the 175th day.
Right.
So it has to be after that point.
Mhm.
So, I mean, a tentative date could be Friday the 10th, but if you had 2 snow days or, and you bump that 175th day out, you would have to respond to that. So it could bump it back as far as the 17th. So
Again, it's a little too early to tell right now.
it's a little too early to tell.
I'm booking my place for the 11th.
Do we have a date for this year's graduation?
We do.
Oh.
It's on I don't have the calendar in front of me, but it's on the calendar as it says tentative,
Yeah.
but it's on there.
Okay.
Is it? We didn't put it on this one, right? It doesn't
No.
say tentative.
That's why I asked.
Yes, it does.
It does?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, graduation is the 10th tentative.
Yeah.
So we put it on there, but the tentative is, do we have more than 2 snow days and do we have to make them up? So
Right.
once we settle that question,
Yeah.
you could almost erase the word tentative and say, there it is.
Which makes it a lot easier for everybody. Good. All right. So that'll bring us to minutes from February 3rd, 2021. Need approval.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from February 3rd, 2021.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, abstain. 400. Tara had to leave for a little bit, and she'll be back. And that will bring us to Mr. Widman with curriculum.
Good evening. Just taking a quick look at this month's curriculum update. Professional learning, we had our meeting last week and we had done a district-wide tech comfort level survey to just really wrap our head around where people were at with the key tools that we use and support as a district. So that really has guided the work of the PD committee and is really guiding some of the options that we want to put forward for opportunities on the 9th. Just an update on grading and reporting, and I kind of grouped this together, grading and reporting and competency-based education. One of the things that we had tasked the grading and reporting committees with at each level was to come up with an elevator speech of what competency-based grading was. And what that highlighted for us is that we have some discrepancies in understanding and in, general, some philosophical differences that we need to wrap around as a district. So what we've put in place since then is we have started having a much more philosophical conversation at the district and at building leadership level, which is now, we made an action plan to start bringing that into the teacher leadership level at each building. We have teachers and admin from our middle school and high school attending a competency-based leadership training. It's a 3-part series. We had the first one already. So some of the work that we've talked about bringing back to the buildings comes directly from that. It's a really good series. So we're pretty energized about that. And the big thing that has come up is just clarifying our vision. And our conversation last week in our district admin team was really about solidifying that around that portrait of a learner, which is, we did a lot of work. It got disrupted when we shifted to remote, but we were able to finish that with community and staff and student input. So that really is sort of the work that we are doing right now, trying to refocus and make sure that we all have the same end target there. Park has been pretty quiet, but we have a whole lot of programming that needs to get reviewed and approved for the spring. So we will be very busy. And just a couple quick assessment updates. We're still working to solidify some of the spring testing dates. There have been some proposed changes to AP coming out of College Board. We're still in discussions on how we're going to incorporate that, but they are looking to bring in the opportunity to do it remotely. So a little bit of a different setup. And one of the things that we talked about in the CHS leadership meeting last week, was really looking to the end of the year and building common competency-based assessments. So we're heading in the right direction.
Are we planning a Live to Learn Academy for this summer?
Yes, we're in beginning talks about what that's going to look like. I've thrown out to Mike that we might want to consider doing 3 or 4 days the last week after school gets out, and then 2 or 3 days in August, kind of bookending it.
Yeah.
Because it's been a tough year. I'm not sure that people are going to want to come and do that. I know a lot really appreciate being able to do it right after school gets out, but at the same time, people are done.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking maybe if we can split it and do the week over a week in June and a week in August, we might get some better turnout. So and I'm working with Jason to piggyback like we did when we were able to run it 2 years ago and do the technology as well as the curriculum.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have 2 new tech integrators to
That would be
help
awesome.
out with that.
Do you want me to wait for my questions or do you want them now?
Are they about what I just talked about, or are they about my?
Competency-based grading, but I don't know. I'll wait later.
All right. All right.
Well,
Well, the
when-
other thing that
Once
sorry.
you do the testing data, that'll shift gears a little bit. So
That's what I was heading towards. So we know that in the spring, when our testing, when we went remote, the state canceled the normal spring testing. We didn't do the SAS. We didn't do the SATs in the spring. So what we were tasked with by the DOE was to assess our students in grades 4 through 8 in their previous grade level. So just to take a look a little bit, what was the goal? We were assessing students using the previous year's grade level because no spring assessments were given. And for us, what we really used it as is to look at possible areas for remediation due to the spring shift to remote. That has been our conversation around it. And that's where we're at. So our process, we tested in October. I will be honest, as with many things that tend to happen at the DOE, we get some mixed messages. And it did cause some confusion. There was messaging that came out saying you had to select the previous year's grade. And then there was messaging sent out saying that it would be loaded up that way so that it would automatically default to the previous year. It did not default. So it defaulted to the current year. So we do have, when you look at our data, you will see that in some of our grade levels, we tested on grade level as opposed to the year before. We were in contact with the DOE to see if we could go back and redo that. And they said not to bother. I'm okay with that because we are still using our modular assessments on grade level to be able to assess where we're at. So looking ahead, this is a long PowerPoint, but it's mainly graphs and pictures. So for each, what you'll see is the math and ELA combined. And then I broke it out so that you can see some of the areas. And this is what we shared with building admin to be able to take back to their teams.
So this one was performed correctly.
Yes. So this is our current 4th grade. They took the 3rd grade assessment in both ELA and in math. So you can see that our ELA scores are okay. Our math scores are a little alarming. But if you take a look, and this is what I think is what I really hope they are taking back to the teams, and that discussion is around those sub-scores. And now I'm not going to be able to get mine to blow up so that I can actually read the numbers.
I don't think this is abnormal. This is what a lot of districts are seeing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. It's not, this is not anything that's different in Litchfield.
Right. I was going to add to it that this is how we have been for a very long time, but I still feel like it needs to be addressed.
So what we are looking at in the, when you look at it's actually bigger there than it is on my own screen. What we're looking at in math, clearly there is work that needs to be done around fractions. That jumps out pretty clearly in math. And that is, we know that is a big push in 3rd grade and 4th grade. So
the second part of the year, would they have received?
They would have started the instruction.
Fractions
They would have
after-
started the
remotely?
instruction. Yeah.
Fractions
So
remotely stink.
yeah, I mean, fractions are hard for kids to process anyways.
manipulatives,
So,
I agree.
yeah, that's really what we're looking at. In terms of the measurement and the base 10, that's much more in line with where the focus is, and we're still pretty strong there. When you look at the ELA, again, writing, and you'll see this, these trends are pretty common.
For this year because of COVID.
For this year, but I think that if we were to look back, we might see similar trends. And one of the things that I hear I've heard from our elementary, our 3rd and 4th grade, but I'm starting to hear from our middle school more is the need for a more concrete writing program, that the Journeys program that we use doesn't really encompass enough writing. So we actually are piloting some and God, I can't think of the name of it. I know I shared it with the board
don't
at
be
the
Newsella.
beginning of the year. That's a tool. That's a tool. But there is a writing specific program that we are piloting in 4th grade right now. So I hope to get some feedback from them.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big area that we miss out on.
Yeah. So looking ahead to 5th grade. So 5th grade, it's similar. Sorry, I flip-flopped the order clearly when I did my chart. Sorry about
So
that.
level 4 is above proficient, or
No. Math
ELA
and
is
the
blue.
colors for ELA and math.
oh, I see.
If you're
Yeah.
a color person like me, that just jumped out that I flipped it. Sorry.
I read the key.
So 5th grade, our current 5th grade took the current 4th grade assessments, both in ELA and math. So those were the 2 grade levels that we didn't have any discrepancy in the test that they took. So you'll see again, stronger in the ELA, still struggles in math. And if we break that down into the next slide, we actually see that our 5th graders did better on fractions comparatively to the 4th. There isn't quite as much of a discrepancy, but measurement seems to be the bigger area of weakness in there. And that may be a combination, as you start to get into crossing measurement with fractions and things of that nature. In ELA, again, you see writing is where we have the biggest area of need.
I honestly, and this is my personal opinion, I think typing and texting and everything has caused you know how many 7th graders don't capitalize the letter I?
And that's something that we've talked about. I've talked about with different groups of teachers that we have to be a little bit more explicit with the fact that is how kids communicate now. And we have to make sure that we acknowledge that is how they communicate, but that's not how you communicate in a more formalized setting. So, and that just comes with the shift in the fact that it's a new normal for us in trying to teach kids to read and write. Okay, so now we get into 6th grade, which
Mary,
is
just the scale on the side, is that student count? That's not percentage, right?
that is let me look back at my data. Sorry. I can't get anything to move. I have to go back and look. I'm not connected
because we have about 100 kids.
Yeah, it
class.
may be student count. I'd have to go back and look, and I can't connect to my massive spreadsheet right now.
So it looks like, it's a pretty obvious bell curve.
Yeah.
Is that what we're shooting for? Or
obviously
ideally we'd like to be heavier.
Ideally we're looking for growth. So,
right.
This is kind of an anomaly year in that I'm not going to put this data next to the state data from the year before until we have more on the other end.
But this does identify gaps.
Yeah. But I think you'd see a similar trend.
Okay.
But I'm not sure it should ever be a bell curve because the category all the way to the left is on grade level or above grade level.
Right. So you should have most of your students.
Correct.
That's our goal. That's where we want most of our
and
students.
Especially if you're doing spring testing, you would want more kids skewed that way and fewer approaching and fewer.
But this is an anomaly because they didn't.
Correct.
Because of the switch in the spring. Okay.
Right. Okay, so if we're moving ahead to 6th grade, what you will see is that they took the 5th grade ELA, but they took 6th grade math. So these students tested on math that they should have been testing on in the spring. So there's a huge shift. I mean, a very obvious
That makes me feel better.
trend in sixth grade math, but that really is the reason why. And what we talked with the building admin about with this is to look at the strengths, target those strengths, and then look at the areas where there was identified weakness on what they should be knowing. And if there are things there that are not going to be taught or they were reinforced skills, that's something that they need to identify as well. So the next slide, you can see the math. Again, what does it tell us? It tells us that our kids aren't ready a year early to take the grade level assessment. But I think looking at, and what I would focus on in this is those kids that are already approaching. We have a very high number of kids that are approaching in those subsets. Ideally, by the end of the year, that's our group that's on or above, and those flip-flop. When you're looking at ELA, the ELA, again, writing is the area that we see standing out as an area for growth. But again, it's not, we have more kids as they're getting older. It seems to be shifting into the on or above and approaching fewer kids that are in that low range. All right, so seventh grade, we flip here with seventh and eighth. Seventh grade took the sixth grade math, but they took the seventh grade ELA. We did have a handful of kids that this was when they realized that it was when seventh and eighth grade took the ELA that they realized that it didn't default. So some kids that made it up actually took the correct grade level ELA. So I have two reports, which is why you'll see a sixth grade ELA and a seventh grade ELA. That number of kids that took the sixth grade ELA was about 12. So, but it does let you see a little bit more of what the breakdown trend is based on last year. So, looking on grade level math, we do see less of a spike in the level 2, level 1 range. And then when we're looking at the seventh grade ELA, this was actually, I thought, a little promising that we had the majority of our kids, a significant number of our kids that already were demonstrating in the proficient range overall.
The B3 and 4.
Yeah. So, and if we look at the breakdown, math, this is because I have a couple extra charts in this one. So sixth grade math, you're looking at the geometry tends to pop up at this point. Number systems are clearly a strength. The interesting to see the shift. But you have your geometry jumps out on that one end, and then the number systems tends to be one that our kids have been pretty strong with. And it seems that we're sitting in the middle with it at this grade level. Next, these are the two ELA, just so that you can see, again, the numbers it's a much smaller breakdown, a much small, and there are additional, wow. Sorry guys, I flipped my slide on that one. But the I can't even, I'm sorry about that I flipped my two cross lines there.
We'll forgive you this one time.
You've had a rough week.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next
Hole
chart.
in the back of my head. I will fix that and I will give you an updated
Thank you.
slide for that. I apologize. Now looking at 8th grade took the 7th grade math and the 8th grade ELA. Again, math in looking at where our kids are at the end of 7th grade, this is very promising. You see the majority of our kids test at a level 4, which is good. And the lowest number testing at a level 1, which is the first time that we've seen that trend across the board with this. ELA, again, it's the next grade level. We're seeing more in the level 2. Unlike in the 7th grade, we did see more of those kids already testing at the level 3. And let's hope I didn't do the same thing on this slide. No, I guess it's just 6th grade. Sorry. Or the 6th grade testing, 7th grade. So you can see in math, the one that jumps out is the exponential equations. But the area of geometry, which we saw as a struggle in previous years, they seem to have caught up with at this point. So again, it's about when we're teaching it versus the testing and the focus on it. ELA, you're seeing it's again the trend is in the writing, but the language use is increasing. That tends to be, if you look back in the charts, the language use along with the writing were the two highest, and we're seeing a shift in appropriate language use. And again, this is at current grade level. They're testing at current grade level for the spring. So it's pretty good. All right. So we also took at the high school level the PSATs. We took the 9, 10, 11, and the SATs for grade 12. I put those all together, even though they are not the same test, but I just wanted you to be able to see where our kids were compared to the state and compared to the norm across the country. So we're sitting right around in 9th grade, 10th grade, we're sitting right around the state average. We're sitting right around the national average. We drop a little bit in 11th grade. But then if you take a look at our 12th graders that took the SATs, we surpassed.
This is overall score.
Overall score. Yep. And I do break it down by the writing, reading, and
Okay.
So next slide. Okay, so this is the mean writing scores. And again, we're right in line with the state, a little bit below in 9th and 10th, a little bit further below in 11th, but you'll see at 12th grade, we actually surpassed the state and national. It's a kind of trend across the board with this. 9th grade and 10th grade are right in line. 11th grade has dropped a little bit, and this is in the reading. And 12th grade has surpassed the state and national numbers. And again, in math, we're looking at the same trends. We're seeing the same trends across the board. The thing that jumps out at me is in looking at the fact that 9th grade, 10th grade, and even 11th grade, we are trending for this test below the state and below the national norm. The familiarity with the test is what I wonder about the 12th grade, because suddenly our seniors have surpassed. And there was a huge jump in it's hard to tell based on the graphs, but there is a huge jump in the numbers.
This senior class was the first class to take PSATs in high school. So they've gotten used
to it.
And
for many of them, they may have already taken the SATs ahead of time. For most of our juniors, most of the juniors have to take them prior to the fall of their senior year or do that as they're prepping for college. So, but I do think that does speak to the familiarity with the test. And we talk a lot about the fact that the kids do, we look at that data at the high school, looking at the PSATs and how does that compare to what we expect to see on the SATs. So I think that shift to the PSATs as that test, that benchmark across the way has been very
Absolutely.
helpful at the high school. Moving forward.
Just
Yeah.
on that point, I mean, I think it's important to emphasize that that each one of those charts show that steady growth,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
But you're changing the comparison because we test all students in ninth grade.
Correct.
But you're not necessarily comparing to schools that test all students in ninth grade. So, like a national score, it could be selective students in schools that are testing, and we're testing all. So,
Right.
so we're lagging a little behind, but just keep in mind, it might not be a totally fair comparison.
Right.
Whereas I think by senior year, you're really talking a broader, more encompassing, and certainly in New Hampshire, with that being
Correct.
the state assessment, and
Correct.
everybody's taking it. So that's a really fair thing. Like, how are we doing? So two things: the positive trend, that's important, and then how we compare in the end is important.
Correct.
More important than in the beginning, I think.
So Mary, do you remember if the 12th grade, these numbers last year had the same trends, or are you saying that the 12th is? a
I
different type
looked
of
back
this year
at
versus last year?
I looked back at last year's just to look at the trends, and the trends were very similar. They were. But I don't know if there was as much, and again, it's hard to tell on the little screen, but if there was as much, if we had surpassed the state and national as much as we did in this fall. So moving forward, I talked about this a little bit. We took this data, we farmed it out to the building, we reviewed it in our building admin team, in our district admin team meeting. We put it in the hands of the building principals to take back to their leadership team, their data teams, and their grade level team meetings so that they could, again, look at it and take what they can to inform for the spring and for us moving forward. This is not something that we put out. We did not send individual reports home to parents, in part because we did have the discrepancy in what we did. And that's hard to explain. But at the same time, we did tell parents if they wanted them, we would make them available. And it was a smaller, they did the, not the modular,
Interim?
the interim, thank you. I just lost that word. They did the interim test as opposed to the full. So it was a shorter test. But really, I think we got some good information from it to be able to
It'll be
take a
interesting
look
to
at.
see what we get in the spring.
Yeah.
When were these taken? When?
October.
October. I wonder if there's got to be a COVID factor in here somewhere. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like-
you're-
like probably affecting, my guess, national numbers and
It's not-
statewide numbers more than us per se.
So the thing is that for, say, the PSATs, we take them every October. So it wasn't, these kids didn't miss the PSATs last year. So our 10th graders took them as 9th graders. Our 11th graders took them as 10th graders because we were in school at that point. But for all of our SAS scores and for the SATs, the fall testing was just to make up for the spring.
So some seniors, including my own, did not take the SATs ever until October. One and done.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
So there is some that is an experience because of that gap. And again, with us testing on some of the wrong levels, I think it
Makes it a little more,
makes it a little more
unpack.
difficult.
Challenge.
Right.
Any questions?
Anyone have any questions from there?
I just wondered if we're, once we identify the gaps, are we looking at summer programming and, ESL, extended school, ESY, to
Yeah.
kind of build up the kids that have fallen, so that they can be
Well, I mean,
approaching in grade level.
Ideally, it's starting with the classroom right now.
Absolutely.
And the teams and the
Right.
grade levels and looking at those kids and, what is systemic.
Yeah.
Because of the shutdown in the spring.
Right.
And what is individual,
Mm-hmm.
and that the goal right now is to get the buildings and the teams looking at the systemic pieces so that we can clearly identify the kids that
need the
that have the individual gaps that we need to look into a more targeted support.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And that'll bring us to the BA report.
Just a couple things to go through in terms of the financial statement audit and the report. I'm still hoping to have that by the end of this week. The auditors are pending receipt of legal representation letters from Drummond and Woodsum and School Leslie Kidder. They have not received those yet. Once they do, they can provide the letter to governance, which will come addressed to the board. I've noted in my report that there is a list of findings, other matters that just procedural things that need to be addressed. When I have the letter of governance to provide to the board, I will provide you also with my document and my response to their findings and how we plan to go forward and fix those procedures. Like I said, I'm hoping by the end of this week, you can let me know if you want a hard copy of the audit or just a digital copy. I usually have them provide 6 hard copies along with the digital so that I can provide them if anyone would like them. This week we received the check from Primex and Travelers Insurance for the repair to the electrical switch at GMS. That check came in for $55,000. We paid our deductible, and now we've received that reimbursement. So now it frees up some money in that maintenance budget to get some other things done, which is fortunate because as Mike has communicated to you, we had some difficulty with the roof drain down at GMS this week, and provided on the documentation that I've received, it looks like we lost about $5,000 worth of books. So that exceeds our deductibles. We will be putting in a claim. Just waiting to hear from Dave Ross to see what the damage is to the carpet in there, if there's any cost associated with replacement. I know sometimes when he has the carpeting done, he retains some supplies so that if there is something that he can repair in-house, he'll do it, but we'll have to see if there's been any damage done to the flooring. I've also I provided my year-to-date financials, cash basis and modified accrual basis, just to give an idea where we stand. We get a revenue status to date, expenditure status to date, and the updated listing of year-end projects that we've kind of added some things to at the bottom just for consideration as we get closer to year-end. This listing will be refined as we go. There may be things that we may want to continue to defer. Are the repairs that we have on the year-end listing for GMS, are we at a critical need for those, or would that money be better spent towards some of the projects that we're working on? So that's provided in here. I also wanted to just bring up the fact that we've put out the request for qualifications for construction management service at LMS. That document's provided in the report, just to get a construction manager that will coordinate and bid out to subcontractors in order to get the project and the things we want to achieve. All those things that we're looking to achieve are defined in the OPR that David Ely and Dick Henry have written for LMS for the project and the things we want to achieve. They've also been working on the GMS OPR and the request for qualifications for architectural services for GMS, so we can start working towards that project. So just wanted to let you know those are on. And David Ely provided a draft for the a draft of the RFQ for architecture services. So we're in the process of reviewing that. Hopefully be able to issue that soon. They want to include the OPR for GMS as well, what we're looking to achieve in the building of a new school. Let me see. I just wanted to go a little bit into food service. In talking to Lauren this morning, since the beginning of February, she implemented a kind of a promotional thing, a friendly competition between the three schools that she named Breakfast Wars, where whichever school served the most breakfasts by February break, I believe, would receive the Golden Fruit Bowl trophy. As a result of this, and enhancing the marketing on the program, they're averaging about 600 breakfasts per week. We can even say the GMS served, she said, 75 breakfasts just this morning. So the program is getting more attention. It's starting to take off a little bit. So that's a good thing. She's hoping to make this an annual event to have this friendly competition amongst the schools.
Corey, do we charge for breakfast?
It's still part of the waiver program. So
Okay.
they are, we're giving meals. We get full reimbursement for a free meal served from the federal government. So
That's fine. I think kids need to eat breakfast. I think that's awesome. Great.
It's a very, very important service. And there is research out there that says kids that eat a good breakfast in the morning, it's better for their learning. So
Oh, absolutely.
it's been great that they've got the program off the ground. I also did want to mention, and I didn't note it in my financials, keeping an eye on some information that was received from the state regarding potential reimbursement for federal reimbursements that were lost during the period from March to June. Now, this won't cover a lot. It won't cover all our costs or all our losses that we've had in the program during this year. Every little bit helps. So as more information becomes available, I will update the board, and hopefully we won't have to supplement or subsidize the food service as much as anticipated originally. So I'll keep the board up to date on that as more information becomes available. That's what I had for tonight. If anyone has any questions for me.
Corey, the first question comes to mind. We're looking for a project manager at LMS right now, and like they have a few more days that they can respond with their qualifications.
Yep.
So with that, are we going to select someone at that time? Is that the plan?
I think we had a preliminary schedule. I believe it's noted on the RFQ.
Right.
How the selection process will go. We're going to take a look at what however many firms put their names in. We did put it out for advertisement. We did direct solicit a couple that we know that are in this business that David Ely are familiar with, and I myself was familiar with one of the candidates that we direct solicited. So we'll see how many we receive. We'll weed it down to the top 3 or 4 that we think would be of interest, and then we'll conduct the interviews and we'll get it awarded by March 19th. So a month from now, we'll have that set up. Then we'll start with the construction manager. We'll start working on the RFPs for which phase of the project we're going to start. So, and the construction manager will be very, very important in that, and getting those RFPs written and reviewed, and just getting the work started.
Right. That leads me to my question, because we do have funds available. I didn't know if we were considering not waiting until like year end, if we know we're going to have year end funds, to possibly start some of these.
So we have funding sources available. We do have the CARES Act 2 funding is going to become available through the grants management system with the state. we can apply and start part of the project through that. And that way, that funding is available through September 2023. So we'll take a look at what the funding sources are available and what the costing is going to look like for the initial phase, whatever we choose. I know the main discussion has been starting on the windows down there, along with potentially the roof. So we'll have to take a look at what phase one is specifically going to be, and then we'll determine which funding source is the best route to choose.
Thank you.
But the goal is to have the construction manager, because they know how to, properly bid it out and get the best pricing and so forth. So that's why getting that on board first. But you're right, Brian, if they were in place by the end of March and could get started on it right away, that would be desirable. And there are multiple sources of funds.
And I think having them available by the end of March also, there's, as we saw with the canopy project, where you had to order specialized doors or windows, the lead time to receive those items, if we want to really get after something during the summer when there isn't students and staff in the building, we have to have ample time to make sure the order's in place and we're ready to go.
Yeah, so I'm thinking.
I have a question. All right, Corey, I might take my mask down for this. Sorry. All right, we're getting COVID money. How are we accounting for it? Like if we spent $100,000 on PPE, is there a spreadsheet somewhere that we got $50,000 in? I just want to know where the spending, is there like a special sheet somewhere in your budget?
Yeah, I'd like to see
To
a
account
breakdown
for
of that
what's
too.
coming in and what's going out, just for what's the transparency for our taxpayers and things like that.
Yes, I do have that. I believe at past board meetings, I can look back, that it has been provided in the documents with my report.
Yeah.
I did update it the other day and I shared it with Mike, and I can make it available. So there was the $252,000 that came from the state, which was an additional $200 per student for the October enrollment number. We have about a $50,000 balance in that. That's been applied mostly to the work that we've been doing to get our ventilation systems and our controls up to date.
Okay.
And the initial ESSER CARES 1 money, that has been spent and requested for reimbursement through the grant funds. I can provide that spreadsheet to the board so that you can see it.
I'd like to see it every month to see what's going, and I don't want to make extra work, but it just would be nice to see what's coming in, what's going out, and
I'm tracking on an ongoing basis, so
That's
just so
great.
you know what's available, so I know
Awesome.
what fund it's going out of, whether it be the grants, the federal grants fund, or through the general fund itself, through one of our budget lines. I have that information available. I can provide.
like,
Corey-
can we use that for a summer reading program and things like that?
We certainly could.
Okay.
Let me break it down to 3 pots right now. So that we're
Okay,
tracking
yes.
3 pots. And these have been provided to the board ongoing, but we'll continue to provide that. So pot number 1 was the CARES Act money of $56,000.
Yep.
That came through the grant management, and Mary set that up, and we used that to purchase Chromebooks, for example, at the elementary school. Or did you take Chromebooks out of a different
I
grant?
took Chromebooks out of the Title IV and Title II grant rollover.
Yeah, the CARES
Went to the initial, to reimburse for the immediate ventilation issues that we identified over the summer.
The initial district-wide audit of all ventilation and HVAC systems, and I believe any of the immediate work was
Get the doors
completed.
open. Yeah. Yeah. I get.
And then the second pot is ESSER 1, which is the 252,000, of which
That's
Corey
the-
said we've got about 50 left.
That's the supplemental public school relief fund that came directly from the state.
Got it.
And the
that was
the
part of
third
our-
pot is what's called ESSER 2. That's about 330,000, of which we've received nothing yet.
That's what I was wondering, yeah,
promised to
okay.
us. And so that's forthcoming. So then the other thing is there are a slew of available options to us. So
Okay.
for example, the high school is in the middle of doing credit recovery for all the students who failed failed classes last spring.
Mhm.
Largely social studies and English students who need those to graduate. So, it's a credit recovery program. I mean, that type of thing we could pay for out of grant money because that's something that's available. So the high school proposed charging families for credit recovery. And I said, we're not charging families for credit recovery. We have grant money to take care of that. So,
Good.
so we are, utilizing it. And, we can't write the grant for the grant that hasn't come in yet, but obviously it's something that's available to us.
It's just very confusing for the average person and the special person like me.
It's a really good question because there is money there, and
It's not here.
our largest priority though was the ventilation system.
Right, to get the doors, I couldn't agree more.
Part of why we've been able to stay open and to have students in school for in-school learning is because we've worked on those ventilation systems. And, the high school will tell you there's nobody complaining about the heating and ventilation this year, partly because we've gone after the repairs and getting the work done that we need to do. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sharing that over to the school board email right now.
Thank you.
So you'll have it available.
And how are we doing on our PPE supplies, cleaning supplies? Are we in good shape there? Continue to make purchases.
There was a pickup scheduled for the National Guard for GMS just yesterday, I believe, but they have opened it up. It's available to all schools. We're making sure that we can get some of those supplies directly from them. So we'll start placing orders for that. I'm going to follow up with Dave tomorrow, see where we are in terms of cleaning products, and we'll start the search again to see what's available. Also of note, the MERV 13 filters, which we have discussed, those have now come in. Dave believes he now has about an 8-month supply of these filters. We're making sure where initially there was some talk about extra taxation on the motors for the ventilation units. So he's been testing it out in one. One of our folks that's been working with us from Design Day Mechanical is going to come in and do an airflow test on that particular unit, make sure everything's okay, and then we're going to get those filters up and running. So I think we're heading in the right direction. So now hopefully maybe some of the cleaning supplies will be more available at this point. Get out there and make sure that we have enough.
We were asked the question because I know some of the PTOs put out, that they were looking for donations of wipes and so forth. My understanding is we have plenty. Actually, if you go into the store now, wipes are available. It's not like it was 6 months ago when you couldn't find one. So I think that was just helpful PTOs. It wasn't so much we don't have enough wipes. So we are able to get our hands on supplies.
Just about every place you go right now, it's like piles of them.
Yeah, I was in Sam's Club the other night and I was like, well, the wipe shortage is over. You could see they were stacked up.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank
I have a
you.
question for Corey.
No.
Corey, when we're doing the RFQs and RFPs, I was wondering if there would be value in adding in a question related to, are you a Litchfield owned business, or do you have Litchfield contractors that you hire, or do you have even Litchfield employees, like check boxes or something? Because I know we ask for their business address, but I know a lot of Litchfield business owners that have addresses in like Hudson or other places, and I just think that
Legally do that?
I don't know.
are we able to do that?
See, I think the purpose, and especially the scope and size of these particular projects that we're doing, there is a specialization. It's not saying that we don't have those businesses in Litchfield. Any business is welcome to come in and bid, but these things they're awarded based on the best perceived value to the school district, not necessarily a low price or where the company is from. But they are open. It's an open bidding process. If a company that is based in Litchfield or someone based in Litchfield is is qualified and wants to put their name in the hat, that's more than welcome, and we'll do the review process. We do work with a couple of vendors that do have close Litchfield ties. TNT, who does a lot of our wiring for us as a local contact. Minuteman Security, who worked on the Canopy project, as a local contact. So there are some Litchfield associated businesses that have been involved in some of our projects. But like I said, the size and scope of these two next projects are really very, very specialized, and the companies and the size of the companies that are capable of doing these size projects are probably bigger than anyone that is housed in Litchfield at this time. But they're always welcome to bid and put their name in.
Right. I understand. I mean, I understand that these are big projects, but maybe there's something in there that you could say, you know, all things being equal, we'd like to consider local folks.
But
You know, and
again,
if you
I don't-
have a tie to Litchfield,
But I think what
let
Court-
us know.
I think what Corey said, though, it's not necessarily local as much as best qualifications.
Hmm.
And if the best
Well,
qualification
that's
comes
what
from
I'm
someone,
saying. All things being equal,
Right.
I choose local, you know?
We can certainly, you're really getting one firm on who are then going to sub out across the trades.
Right.
So we could certainly say, if there's somebody locally competitive, we'd prefer that. But that's up to them ultimately. That's why we hire them to do that piece. And they know the quality aspect way better. I mean, we can't internally know everything about drywall and ceilings and floors and so on. So, but we can certainly
I know, but
let
anything
that
that we
preference.
can do to encourage it
Yep.
in this business climate and for the good of our community, I feel like we should do.
Absolutely.
anything else for Corey? All right. Thank you, Corey.
Thanks.
That'll bring us committee reports. I'm not sure, I don't think anyone has met. I know budget has not, and nor for capital improvements.
Grading committee met.
Yeah, we met yesterday.
I thought it was productive. I mean, I couldn't go until, well, it got moved up a half hour and I didn't realize it. So I came late, but I got to go into the work sessions, which I thought were really, I got to go into the GMS one. I thought it was really good. They're talking about relearning. What does the relearning look like at each schools? And, that things are on paper now. We're seeing some tangible ideas, and everybody, at least at the meetings, had opportunity to, for feedback and to make edits. So I thought it was a good meeting.
Thank you. All right, brings us to new business. We don't have anything from the School Board Association, do we?
No, I just, I would just encourage the board, and this was specific to HB 20, because I know that we took a stance. We wrote a letter to our legislators. And then I think I forwarded a few more links that have come. So when I get stuff from either the school boards, well, you'll get the school board stuff direct, but the school administrators have also sent out a few things, and I'll forward those to the board members and the admin team. And I just encourage people to do that sign-in process. It's pretty quick and painless. It's just a way to be heard. I will tell you that HB 20, and this is on public record. So if you go to the second date of when the committee was meeting and hearing comments, because remember, they overran the first meeting. There were too many comments. So
It
they
was
moved
last
to the
Thursday,
second
I
one.
believe.
And one of the representatives there said, because the numbers were something like 3,100 people opposed and 600 people in favor. And one of the, I don't know if he's a sponsor, but one of the people in the committee said, I don't care what those numbers are. Those are just who's lobbying better and getting word out. That doesn't matter. All that matters are the 20 people sitting in this room right now and where 11 people land. And just telling you that, so it's really important that we get heard and that we put that pressure out, and we let the folks in Concord know that, we have a definite opinion on it. And there are several attacks to public ed that are underway at the moment that will end up, in my opinion, every analysis I've seen is going to cost us more in the long run to do this. So I just think, we need to continue to be vocal. Even if the official stance is it doesn't matter, I still think we need to do it. So
And there's also, I mean, it's definitely would affect, its passage would definitely impact public schools, but it also will impact taxpayers. And I think a lot of people don't understand. I'm just looking at this article from Reaching Higher, nh.org, and they're saying that, if only 50% of the students who are currently attending private schools applied and received vouchers, it would cost the state of New Hampshire $50.9 million in new state spending the first year. And that's all on our taxpayers. Those are students that are already attending private schools that would apply for the vouchers. It, not only does it potentially mean us losing students and losing revenue, it's a big expense to take on as a state.
It lends right into the thing I've been saying for, I feel like 30 years, which is just fund the schools in the first place and let us do our jobs. Because, all of these efforts, it's like, just, let's lessen the rules for the charter schools, but keep all the rules on top of the public schools. It's like, well, lessen the rules on us and let us be creative too. And we can find some avenues here. But instead, it's always, we'll create something new and a different funding or a different set of rules and hope they'll be able to thrive.
Yeah, there's also a bill proposing to add, I think it was 72 new charter schools without town approval. So we could end up having an approved by the state charter school in Litchfield without voters approving that.
And if you want to read a horrifying account, the charter school in Concord that just got shut down. And, again, you're turning public tax dollars over to untrained educators who are responsible for the rules because it's federal money, so they can't waive the rules there. And what ended up happening with that was criminal. And I say that word, obviously nobody's been convicted of anything yet, but if you just read the forensic audit that was done and the accounting discrepancies, none of that would occur in a public school. I mean, it just would not occur between this board overseeing stuff. You've got a business administrator who knows the rules. I'm tuned into it. Mary knows what the rules are for grants. So, and trust me, Ann keeps us all in line. So at the end of it all, we have mechanisms in place. But here's hundreds of thousands of dollars going to somebody playing school, frankly. And the result was massive missteps. Read the article. It's shocking what was done.
I just want to let you know there was you probably all got it. There was an amendment to HB 20.
Oh.
And they're going to they recessed the discussion on it today, and they're going to finalize the motion for the committee to vote first thing tomorrow morning. They included a link. They modified the eligibility requirements and guidelines, and I think it makes it worse.
Let's take a look at that.
So if you get a chance to read it, it's not that long, but if you get a chance to read it for tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope our state legislators will support our request to support our public schools.
I think the person that spoke in the room got it wrong. It's not what 20 people in the room do. It's what the whole legislature does. So, I think you just have to say, okay, whatever comes out of there, then it's going to go to a vote of all 400 of them. And hopefully their common sense will prevail. So.
All right. Very good. So that'll bring us on to review of policies. So we have a handful of reapproval of policies that we postponed from our last meeting and brought back.
Make a motion to approve policy BAAA, BBA, BBAA, BBBC, BBBG, BG, BGA, BGB, BGC, and BGE.
So I'll second. Any discussion on any of the policies? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. They all pass 5-0-0. Luck is Did you have something on deliberative?
I just wanted to give a chance for the board to weigh in on thoughts or concerns from deliberative. So we did it differently this year. The town went in the morning, the school board went in the afternoon. Talking with LCTV afterwards, there were some real positives from their point of view to having it all in one day. And it was set up in the gym, if we get to a point where COVID is better and we can go back to the auditorium, you could still do that same format. But the gym certainly had the more air volume. So that's why we went in there. But I'm just curious if the board has thoughts or feedback. Should we try to steer it toward a similar thing or head back toward the town goes on one day and the following Saturday the school goes?
I liked having it in the afternoon, but I worry that attendance was much, much lower this year because it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon.
Let's see, what I would suggest is we just alternate each year.
Oh, we go first next year. And
Go
the town
first
goes
next year
on.
and let them.
Yeah.
But I think doing it all at once, I mean, if especially if the public knows way ahead of time, that's how we're going to do it, then you can
They'll
kind of
make
like
plans.
make plans for one Saturday then rather than 2 Saturdays. Because there's still all kinds of activities that are occurring that people can't make it on
Yeah.
like on a Saturday, but let alone 2 Saturdays.
Did you hear any feedback from the town, like moderator and the clerks that needed to be there all day?
I did not. We'll get that feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's a good thought.
They did a great job.
It started at 10, and when did we finish? I'm trying to think.
We were done by 2. We were at
2?
like 1:50.
So it wasn't even a full day. I don't know
They're
what their
both-
setup
Yeah.
is, but
Yeah, they were both. I mean, we only had 4 warrant articles and 2 of them were the same, and the town had like 14, something like that. It's a little low for them.
And if you look at, project ahead to next year, you've got potentially CBAs that'll be on there.
Mhm.
You've got potentially a funding for renovation / school projects coming up over the next couple of years. So you're looking to add some real meat to our warrant, which would certainly change. We won't be out in 50 minutes.
No.
But
I liked it.
I did too. Tara and I went early.
We did.
Like I said, what I would suggest though is we just alternate.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
perfect. And we will check in, Michelle, with the moderator in the town.
I may not be there.
Thank you.
I mean, it just seems to make a lot of sense. You only have to set up once.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Anything on David? You don't need that, right?
Well, so the Dave Ely piece, I forgot to liven the link up, so I apologize for that. But what we have from Dave, and I will get this to you, so I kind of want to explain it now, and then if we need to wait 2 more weeks, that's okay. But this is an agreement that Windy Hill has given us, and this is to provide consulting services for the middle school project. So I just want the board to take a look at it. You're bringing a bunch of people to the table. So you get the construction manager on board who will do the lineup of it, but we also need, some architectural services. There are mechanical services. Trying to think what else is in here, electrical services, et cetera. So, this is sort of an agreement of how those services will be provided. And this is within Dave's scope of work. This is the type of work that he can do for us. So our recommendation is that we sign this and that we plug ahead with him. But I want the board to take your time to look at it, review it. And if you have questions, we can hit those at the next meeting.
All right. That brings us to old business of policies, second readings. The first is BA Board Operational Goals.
Is this the one with all the relationships?
Yes.
Yep. I'll make a motion to accept BA Board Script Operational Goals.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. We now need to rescind policy BAA, evaluation of the board. I'll make a motion to accept rescinding policy BAA.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. The next is policy BB. Make a motion to accept policy BB.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. 500. Next policy is BEC, non-public sessions. I'll make a motion to accept policy BEC.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Next policy is policy BEDB, agenda preparation and dissemination. I'll make a motion to accept policy BEDB.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Our last one is BHE, school board use of email and other electronic communications. I'll make a motion to accept policy BHE.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. 500.
Going forward, just so you have a heads up on this, I'm gonna, as I work on the policies, I'm gonna drop them in dated folders in the team drive. So on the March 3rd one, there'll be like 6 or 7 of them or whatever. And then I won't put so many in that you'll be inundated. So I'll just keep dropping them in folders.
Oh, okay.
And I'll let you know when I do, so you know what's in there.
Yep.
And then you can start looking ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I
Does
was gonna
that
ask if
sound
you
like
could
a plan?
link to the folder.
It'll be in the school board material folders. It won't be on an
Okay.
agenda until it's ready to be linked to
Okay.
the agenda. So does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Gives everyone more time to go
Yeah.
through them if there's any questions. Especially where in Tyra's situation, she doesn't necessarily have it, no. Like she likes a lot certain time to do it.
Regimented. I read everything over the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I work during the week, so.
That's just it. So you'll
how
get
we'll
it
do
sooner, so it'll be a lot
Fine.
easier.
Exercising.
I think it'll work out good.
Thank you.
Good. All right, so our coronavirus review and update.
So just I think the board knows this, but we did have a remote learning day this week. I really was actually trying to get a day in yesterday. And I thought we might be able to do it, but the ice is just one of those tricky things. You can have a shift in temperature by a degree and it can turn on you very fast. And so in the end, as all the other districts around us folded, we really had to go to the remote day. So luckily, we had given people a heads up on that, tried to be as clear in communicating with families that, why we were waiting until that morning to make the call, along with a lot of other towns. So we had that remote learning day yesterday. Honestly, Friday's forecast is not looking good.
Are you going to put frickin' rain again on your email, your translation?
Apparently I'm Mike Chatty.
Yeah, Mike Chatty.
Chatty with his freaking rain.
I love that Siri can now read my mind.
Freezing and freaking. We're
Love autocorrect.
It's difficult making that call too. It's look at yesterday's weather and with the ice where we started, but then it warmed up very quickly. Then look at today where it's like, if it shifted a little bit more yesterday, then it would have been like a sheet of ice for the entire day.
We got the same email, too close to call at 3:00 from our district. I'm sure you got the same thing, Rob. It all depends on when it comes down. I don't want a high schooler driving and I don't want to drive a high schooler.
And you want a busload of children either.
No.
So
the other thing too, if you look at yesterday's forecast, for example, I mean, they were calling for 10 inches of snow up north, and then the maximum snow that fell in New Hampshire was 4 inches. So where did the other 6 inches go? Rain. I went out at noon to chisel off my steps and I had a half an inch of ice. Literally, I measured it. I'm like, there is a half an inch of ice on this thing and all the trees and everything. So it's,
But they didn't even plow. They sanded twice before they even had the plows go around 11 because I was sitting right by the window in front of my computer all day. Yeah. I'd
was,
rather drive in snow than ice any day. I would.
the other piece,
Shitty driver.
just so I think I put this into parents, but people are asking me about a good old traditional snow day. If we can pull that off, we'll try. I do think that students and staff are looking for that opportunity. If we can make that happen, we've done a lot of remote learning days. But
Mental health day.
there's a catch, which is that, if we have a snow day, we now go to school on Friday, June 18th. So, that's something to keep in mind. And probably nobody will care if we end on Thursday, the 17th or Friday, the 18th. But if we have two of them and we have to go to Monday, the 21st.
Yeah, but forget
And then that
It's gonna go
changes high
nuts.
school that changes graduation date too.
That might shift the graduation date. That's another factor. Thank you for reminding me of that. No, Friday, the 18th will not impact graduation date because that would still be within the 175.
I'm a fan of a mental health day. I miss a snow day.
But I just want everyone to understand it really is an art. You have to look at all these things. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just quick and easy. So we're struggling to do our best to get this right. But so we'll see where we
fan
land.
of getting out early.
Me
But you're
too.
never going to make everybody happy.
If you're going to take a snow day,
Right.
you want to make sure it's the perfect kind of snow.
Exactly.
You don't want to take it on a sleet or freezing rain day.
So like yesterday?
Exactly. I had
Not
exactly that
yesterday.
thought. I'm like, okay, kids, have a snow day, go out and play in the ice, and the puddles, because it really wouldn't have been fun, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's tough stuff.
I think we need to save it for an electricity
Power
outage.
outages.
Yeah, that's the word I was
I
looking
was
for. Yeah.
Did anybody lose power in town yesterday? I didn't hear reports of it. I lost power 5 times yesterday. But it was only out for 5 seconds, just enough to kick you off the internet, just enough to take 10 minutes to get back into a Google Meet. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Just not to make all your,
Lights
Oh, the clocks
flash.
I've given
Oh,
up
yeah.
on. Everything
That's
is
the
whacked,
worst.
and I'll fix it later.
My alarm didn't go off today because I messed up my clock yesterday. I was a little late.
All right. So a couple of current situations. So spring sports. So we are plugging ahead now with this plan for spring sports. We learned a lot doing fall sports. We've learned now doing winter sports. I feel like we've got spring sports under control at this point. Plus the fact that we're shifting from indoor sports to outdoor sports just kind of makes this easier. But I wanted to say that out loud to the board and see if you had any concerns about what we've done, or are we good to just kind of plug ahead and to get everything up and going?
I think so.
No, I think everything's been safe. I mean, I know the game today. Our kids rode to Nashua in a bus with the windows down. They prepared the kids, and
I don't know. There's a difference between indoors and outdoors as far as I'm concerned. A big difference.
definitely.
Perfect. Then I said to Josh that we would bring it up, but he's beginning the same kind of planning. And, it'll be the similar things, the regional, reduced travel, et cetera. So we'll keep that in play. The current COVID metrics. So I've shared with you that state metric. On some level, I feel like the metric caught up to us to a degree because I think we were out ahead of it a little bit. But now we're really in sync with it. The one thing to point out is that if you look at the chart that says, okay, once you've measured your community spread aspect, and then you've looked at your impact on the schools, you'll notice that chart has 3 yellow hybrid squares on it, to which we do not have a hybrid model, and we could not implement a hybrid model at this point. That ship kind of sailed with the way we set everything up around the in-person. So really the thing I just want the board to be aware of is that we would have to make a decision whether we would stay in person or shift to remote. And I think it's really going to depend on the local impact. What impact is it having on the schools? So just to be clear that's the current guidance and that's the current metric that we're using. I also feel that the CDC guidelines that came out on Friday, I think they were, they also really validated the excellent work that we've been doing in Litchfield and why we've been able to stay open, because what those are now recommending to get more schools open, we've aligned with. So we're doing well with the physical distancing. We're doing well with the PPE, et cetera. So I think we've landed in a good spot with it, but I wanted to pause there and just see if the board had any questions or comments about those.
Where are we now?
Our current numbers? Yeah.
No, what the community spread?
The community spread right now, today it was at 4.6 in Litchfield. The state of New Hampshire is at 4.3. Those are percentages, and that's the 7-day positivity rate. Those are both considered minimal, so they already have us in the minimal range. And so we're at minimal spread and minimal impact is where we currently measure.
Till the Super Bowl parties come back.
That'll be next week when everybody's on
Yes.
vacation. So
What?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's on vacation.
let me pull up the current numbers so that we can just review those with you. So here's the Griffin chart. You can see that there is one positive staff member at GMS. And I marked on the 15th because we had one positive staff member who came off positivity. And then a new person went on the positivity. So that's why I put an asterisk in there, because it's not just one person continuing. It was actually a shift from one person to another. Not related, by the way, but in terms of tracking. So you can see the numbers at Griffin are very manageable. No real concerns there. At the middle school, also there's currently one positive student that was a community-based spread. There are 7 students who are quarantining, but from a staff point of view, it's really having very minimal impact on operations there. So the middle school is also in a good spot. The high school, there are currently no positive cases between staff and students. And there is one staff member quarantining and 3 students who are quarantining. So again, the impact on our staffing is pretty slim. So we're feeling good going into the break. Our enrollment numbers, I'm going to add, when you see the March chart, I will add in a March enrollment update, because the middle school and the elementary school have given an option for students to transition back in or out. So that'll shift a little bit. The high school will stay until April at the end of the quarter, but we'll have an updated aspect to this chart. So we continue, I mean, right now we're at 87% at the high school that are in person, 83% at Griffin, and 74% at the middle school. Those numbers may shift just a little bit. I update the vaccine rates pretty much every Friday. I will tell you, I've said it before and I'm going to say it here. I'm dismayed by New Hampshire slipping in the chart. We are not getting as many shots in arms as the other states. So, you know, Connecticut, Maine, Vermont, and Massachusetts are doing better than New Hampshire. If you look at New Hampshire's rate as of last Friday, the 9.9%, in the US, it's at 10.9%. So we're actually behind the national average. And if you look from where we were to what we've done, we just have not kept up. So to me, this is an important part of the story, because we're not getting vaccines in people as rapidly as other states. And that worries me when we're trying to stay open and to combat this thing. And then the last thing is the all remote dates. And I added yesterday's weather day to it. So, you know, we are tracking the number of days that we've been out and how it's impacted. So the last thing I wanted to talk about for current situation is we are going around with the travel quarantine. So there are students and staff who are traveling over the break. And one aspect in the travel quarantine is that if you have had a positive COVID test within the last 90 days, you don't have to quarantine after travel. The question we've posed is, does that protect you against the new variants? So for example, the number 1 state for the UK variant is, anyone want to guess?
Florida.
Florida, bingo. That's the number 1 leading state for where that variant is. And we have several staff and students who are traveling to Florida, some of whom are not planning to quarantine because they hit that 90-day period, right? But if they bring the more potent variant back and can carry that back into our schools, that's problematic. So we are trying to get clarification from the state, exactly what that means. And we just want to be really clear with everybody about it. So I know there are some people who right now feel they don't have to quarantine, but I would caution that if that guidance shifts as late as Sunday, the 28th, and they say, whoops, no more, people will have to then quarantine very quickly, because we really do need to continue to protect our colleagues and our students in the school against people who travel and could be exposing that back into the building. So I just want to say that out loud here, say it to the public, and we are continuing to monitor that guidance. And so we don't know where it's going to land, but
I assume this has to be a pretty small number of people that have had COVID. We're not talking the majority of people traveling.
we are not talking the majority, but we do have. So you're right. The few people who have had COVID and been positive, and you can look at the charts, there aren't that many, but we do know of some who have, are traveling and feel that they're okay because of the immunity. They may personally be okay, but we don't know what the threat is back to the community.
You could say the same thing about people who've been vaccinated, couldn't you?
Actually, yep. So talking with one of the school nurses today, she made that exact point and said, I have been vaccinated because all three of our nurses have received the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
However, that doesn't mean that I can't transport it. So therefore, I'm not traveling because I want to protect my colleagues against exposure, because I could then transport back and transmit the coronavirus or one of the variants. And I think right now they said the UK variant is in, I don't know, it was like 37 states or something. And the South African one, which is even worse, is in like 8 or 9. So, you know, I have that on the back of my mind and something that we're going to keep monitoring and have guidance on. I'll put that into the newsletter. So I have added into the, I think you saw in the 3 school newsletters that went out last week, you know, the blurb from the superintendent. I'm going to try to keep up with that weekly. And what I just talked about will be this week's theme, because I just want people to hear that and not be surprised if they travel and there's a change in that guidance. And that's what I have for you. If there's anything else on the COVID stuff, I'd be happy to answer it.
That means we're going to be stuck in New Hampshire forever.
Yeah.
I can't even go to Connecticut. They said I have to quarantine if I go to Connecticut.
Why's that?
Why? They said if I stay in a hotel in Connecticut, I wanted to go to Mystic for a couple days with the kids. And they said if I go to Connecticut, because I'm from New Hampshire, I have to quarantine when I come back.
Who said, the state?
The hotel. I guess I could drive down and come back, but that's not fun. That's too far.
Other states
Or I
have
have to
done.
quarantine in Connecticut because they said they're only allowing New Yorkers and Rhode Island people in Connecticut or something crazy. No offense to New Yorkers and Rhode Island people.
Do we have a sense of how many of our staff have actually been able to get the vaccine? Obviously, I know it's phase
so-
1A and B right now, but
Holly is tracking that. So when somebody receives shot 1 and shot 2, they get a COVID card, and we're asking for copies of that to be submitted. But it's really interesting if you read what's coming out of that. Now they're talking like a 3-month period after that for like not guaranteed, but
Right.
you know,
You might need a booster.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is really interesting. It's not I've got the shot, I'm all set
Not
for
a
the rest of my
forever
life
thing, right,
at
right.
all. We're going to have to learn to live with coronavirus as an active part of our life. And so,
As we do with the flu.
as we do with the flu and others.
You won't be hospitalized.
Yep. All right. Any questions on the manifest? That'll bring us to community forum once again.
All right, let me switch gears. I'm now rejoining our community forum. The only person in the call seems to be Mr. Keefe across the room.
Did you have
Let
anything you
us
want to
say
say?
something now.
And Patrick, did you want to speak? No, you said. All right.
All set?
We'll close community forum, and that'll bring us in non-public session, RSA 91-A:311. Yes,
Yes.
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 we're now in non-public.